Welcome to the Benning Report. Coming up in this edition, the 75th Ranger Regiment celebrates its 30th anniversary.
And fires and maneuver come together on Fort Benning.
Later, Sesame Street invades Sand Hill.
Welcome to the Benning Report. I'm Melissa Bell.
And I'm David Wright with the Fort Benning Public Affairs Office. Thanks for watching.
For the first time, female soldiers have the opportunity to volunteer to attend the Army Rangers course in a potential assessment to determine how to proceed with integrating women into previously closed occupations, units, and positions. Two all-Army messages released in September announced the official request for female volunteers to participate as either students or observers and advisors. In this assessment, female soldiers will train alongside their male counterparts in various phases, including the Benning phase, Dahloneg's Mountains, and Florida's swamps. Women observers will be integrated into each phase of the assessment to assist and advise Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade leadership and instructors, while capturing lessons learned. Observers will not be considered Ranger instructors, nor will they evaluate, train, or direct course students. All current Ranger course completion standards would remain in effect for this assessment to include prerequisites, phase performance requirements, and graduation standards. As part of the Army Soldier 2020 initiative, this assessment will ensure Army officials have the information to make informed decisions about providing the best qualified soldiers the opportunity and training to serve in any position where they are capable of performing to standard, regardless of gender. The decision to move forward with the assessment will be made in January of 2015, and women who want to volunteer to participate as observers have until October 10th to apply, while volunteers for students should begin the process now to allow for leadership approval by the December 1st application deadline. For more information, visit the Fort Benning homepage at benning.army.mil and click on Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade under the Maneuver Center tab.
In 1984, the 75th Ranger Regiment was activated on Fort Benning. Now in 2014, soldiers, friends, and families gathered to celebrate 30 years of leading the way. Katie Cook brings us the details.
Ranger battalions are famous for various operations around the world since World War II, where they earned their motto, Rangers Lead the Way, after scaling the cliffs of Pointe-du-Hoc and the shores of Omaha Beach, to protecting Haiti's democracy during Operation Urgent Fury. It was on October 3, 1984 that the Rifle Battalion and regimental headquarters were activated on Fort Benning, producing the most active-duty Rangers in 40 years. Celebrating the 30th anniversary of this activation, the Ranger community as well as the Chief of Staff of the Army gathered to commemorate this legacy.
As a Ranger, what today means is a special privilege to honor not only the sacrifices the current Rangers are sacrificing today, but to honor those that came before us from the beginning in 1984 when the regiment was activated.
Rangers demonstrated advanced capabilities as they performed fast rope infiltration and exfiltration on York Field. These techniques are executed in the current theater of war and exhibit the advanced tactics and training of the modern-day Ranger.
75th Ranger Regiment has proven themselves time and again as the quiet professionals who thrive in the most challenging environments. Throughout the years, the regiment has remained the most elite infantry force in the world.
During the ceremony, honors were made to the Rangers who had given the ultimate sacrifice, their lives to defend their country. A pedestal was also unveiled to reflect recent operations in which Rangers have served, including Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom.
We are very fortunate as a country to have men and women who not only believe in the values and ideals of this country and what it stands for, but are willing to fight for them. That's why it is such an honor for me to stand here today in front of them. Those willing to give up everything for the love of their family and the love of their fellow soldiers and the love of their country.
The 75th Ranger Regiment has participated in every contingency operation, from Operation Just Cause to the Global War on Terror, where they have continued to lead the way.
What we'd like to see everybody take away from today is that we continue to maintain the excellence that when the regiment was stood up, what the expectations were that we continue and we are excelling and leading the way for the Army in everything that we do.
The 30th anniversary celebration concluded with 8 Rangers inducted as distinguished and honorary members of the regiment. Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV.
Since 1968, America has honored the accomplishments and rich heritage of its Hispanic community, setting aside September 15th through October 15th to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month.
We can become one.
Fort Benning's Lloyd Elementary Choir serenaded soldiers and civilians as they celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month. Speaking at this observance was Command Sergeant Major Napoleon Noguera Payan, who talked about embracing our nation's diversity and gave a call to action.
See beyond what's in front of you. See beyond that accent. Take the time to know them. Take the time to know your soldiers in this case.
Between July of 2011 and 2012, the number of Hispanics rose in America by over 1 million people, with most tracing their heritage back to Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Central America.
Right now we are at 53 million, but at the rate we're going by the year 2060, we're going to be over 128 million. So it is hugely important that we start understanding the culture, variety, and what they bring to the table, and how can we work together, respect each other, and continue to making this nation what it is.
Sergeant Major Noguera Payan is proud of his service to our nation and hopes others will serve our country alongside over 1 million other Hispanic veterans and service members today.
You also got to take a commitment of duty, honor, and country. You cannot just go about trying to say, well, I want all of this, but I don't want to put nothing into it. We all got to cultivate that to work and achieve things for the greater good of the nation, not for only the person, but for the nation itself.
After nearly 50 years of celebrating the first Hispanic Heritage Month, America continues to renew its commitment to embracing the talents and diversity from the many who call it home. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
Since 2010, Americans have removed over 3.4 million pounds of unused prescription medication from circulation nationwide. The Army Substance Abuse Program has partnered with this effort and made it possible for the Fort Benning community to safely kick its excess drugs to the curb by taking part in National Prescription Take-Back Day. National Prescription Take-Back Day is an initiative led by the Drug Enforcement Agency to encourage people to return their unused prescription drugs, because keeping them stockpiled in your home can create a number of hazards.
Well, one thing about keeping the drugs around when you don't need them is there's always that chance of children getting a hold of them. You know, if you get children to get a hold of these drugs and they don't really know what they are, they think it's candy, and they take these drugs and it can cause problems for the children.
This event is held twice a year, and each time participation has increased along with community awareness.
We're moving in the right direction. Over the last years, I've seen the trends has been increasing in terms of the number of patients, customers in the community who's been turning it in, and also the poundage, the weight. We've noticed that every event, the weight increases.
At previous events, Fort Benning has received as much as 135 pounds of drugs. Today, they are prepared for much more. Members of the community turned out at this location in front of the main exchange and gladly turned in their unneeded drugs. Representatives from the Army Substance Abuse Program then collected them in these boxes for later transport to the DEA.
One thing about taking the drugs in, we have to make sure that when we take the drugs, if the drugs has a person's name on it, we have to black their name out.
As anonymous drop-off, so it's not like there's any stigma in terms of what you're returning.
The next National Prescription Take-Back Day is scheduled for April of 2015, and everyone is encouraged to participate. We're just a few weeks away from the historic grand opening of the brand new Martin Army Community Hospital. Here's a look at what you can expect from the new facility.
The future Martin Army Community Hospital will continue the tradition of delivering top-notch care to our soldiers, their families, and our retirees. Medical services began here in 1918 as the medical staff operated in tents during World War I. The first permanent medical structure opened on Fort Benning in 1924, which later gave way to the current Martin Army Community Hospital when it opened in 1958. This fall we will enter a new era of military medical health care with the opening of a brand new hospital. The world-class facility will have a contemporary design and will be a cornerstone of the Fort Benning community for the next 50 years.
When you first drive onto post, the first thing that you're greeted with is a welcome home. And that's what we're extending to the entire community when we open the new Martin Army Community Hospital. Welcome home to a tremendous facility that will really allow us to leapfrog the current healthcare delivery model to move into a patient-centered model, allowing patients access to not only of the latest in terms of technology and services, but also in terms of team-based care that's really driving fundamental changes and improvements in how we deliver health care.
Coming up next, it's Maneuver and Fires for a testing double play.
The Maneuver Battle Lab evaluates a multitude of technology to ensure soldiers have the latest in gear to aid in achieving overmatch on the battlefield. In a recent exercise, leadership from 2 centers of excellence came together during testing to offer insight.
Maneuver and Fires teamed up to test new equipment at Fort Benning's Maneuver Battle Lab. As part of the squad foundation of the Decisive Force campaign, the Maneuver and Fires integration exercise looked at 3 primary areas: counter technology for unmanned aerial systems, precision fires down to the squad level, and energy harvesting for the small unit.
What it does, it tries to focus on priorities and gaps associated with the SFDF effort. Last year we did an event called DNNE, Dismounted Non-Networked Experiment. Was our first look at that, how a small unit would function without a network on an early entry type operation. This year we've evolved to what I discussed earlier, the power solutions, the precision fires at the small unit level, and the counter UAS.
Collaboration for this combined arms experiment began in June at Fort Sill for Phase 1, including range-type events looking at counter-UAS solutions. As these aerial systems become more readily available, the potential for enemy UAS increases, requiring countermeasures.
It's absolutely crucial to be able to detect them because they're collecting intelligence, they're conducting recon surveillance, and could potentially deliver lethal or non-lethal effects on our forces.
At Fort Benning, soldiers were placed in a 72-hour tactical environment to determine the operational impact and effectiveness of this new technology. The current baseline for measuring extended operations where tactical resupply may be limited. Working alongside the Fire Center of Excellence, Fort Benning soldiers evaluated Instant Eye technology before assaulting compounds.
Early prototypes, we've got the Instant Eye that is currently a micro UAS, which means about 5 pounds. We hope to get to a nano UAS, which would be 1 pound or less, that potentially you use at the squad level. I just need to see what's around the corner. I just need to see what might be on that roof, on the ridge line up there, that would just impact me at the tactical edge.
Soldiers also examine the effectiveness of Mafia, the Maneuver Aviation Fires integrated application, an app on the Net Warrior system allowing soldiers to plot precision grids for precision fires. This collaboration between the Maneuver and Fires Center of Excellence ensures future assets will provide the relevant combat power and force protection to the maneuver warfighting function as part of a combined arms team and a combat power multiplier. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
After the break, Christmas comes early thanks to this year's Elf Run. But first, Fort Benning's Picture This. Fort Benning schools have incorporated a 21st century program that integrates multiple disciplines into a single class. Our Katie Cook goes back to elementary school as students study chemical engineering through STEM.
E.A. White Elementary was the first school on Fort Benning to pilot the STEM program. STEM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, is powerful because of the way it's taught. Instead of focusing on independent elements, STEM brings the disciplines together, focusing on their relationships to each other and the world around them.
STEM is relevant science, where everything is cross-curriculum interrelated. So you tie everything together. It's not taught in isolation. So you see the connection of science in math. You see the connection of science with technology. You see the connection of science with language arts or social studies, because they use real-world scenarios to help kids develop.
Today, students are put into different groups to work on chemical engineering. Each flour bucket has different ingredients added. Students use math to measure out the amount of water added to each bucket, then use magnifiers to analyze what the combined ingredients look like.
I think a lot of times with our younger children, we think, oh, engineering, science and technology, can they really do this? But that's really where you need to start them, because that's when they're the very most creative, and most of those kids think there's nothing they can't do. And so when you put them in a situation like we have, the sky's the limit for them.
Once these students have looked at all of the different effects ingredients have on each other, they collaborate as a classroom to describe the differences they see from each unique mixture.
They take ownership of their creativity, and they take ownership of what they've designed as a solution. They can explain it to you. They'll show you how it works. I think that's the most beneficial part of STEM. If anybody comes into a school and sees that going on, they're going to say, oh, STEM is wonderful for our students.
The goal of the STEM program is to prepare students for jobs of the future. Some jobs are so advanced that they haven't even been created yet. Currently, there are 2 STEM teachers who rotate between the Fort Benning elementary schools. Plans call for more STEM teachers in the future. Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV.
While many were snug in their beds, a group of dedicated Santa's helpers were gearing up for the 8th annual Elf Run held recently on Fort Benning. This year's race encouraged both naughty and nice to color outside the lines. The Elf Run is a 5K event and the only fundraiser for Santa's Castle, a charity benefiting needy military families at Christmas.
Last year we had about 160 runners, and this year we've already exceeded our goal by having over 150 pre-registered this year.
In 2011, costumes were introduced to the Elf Run, ramping up the fun for everybody. This year, another element was added, a splash of red and a splash of green.
This year is actually the first time we've ever done a color run. So along the route, that they're going to have red and green powder thrown on them as they run through the race.
We've never done this run. We've done other color runs and stuff like that. And I know it's just fun taking the kids out to these color runs and just the 5Ks in general. Good cause, a lot of fun, get to dress him up, can't go wrong.
Young or old, serious runners or more casual athletes, everyone enjoyed coming out and supporting the charity. And I do mean everyone.
It's a great program. It's great to see so many people turn out on a Saturday where it's not that nice and it's early in the morning. So it's great to see all these people and their families come out and just show their support for the program.
The Doughboys football team was on hand to welcome finishers across the finish line, and prizes were given out for the best team spirit and best costume. And at the end of the day, it was another successful Elf Run in the books.
I mean, we've always driven by and seen the signs for Santa's Castle, but I never really knew what it was until this, and I started looking up, and it's pretty neat what they do, getting the toys for the underprivileged kids and stuff.
For those that would still like to donate, it is not too late. Simply visit online at santascastlebenning.org. David Wright, Fort Benning TV. Coming up next, the beloved residents of Sesame Street perform for Fort Benning children.
Everyone's favorite Muppets visited Fort Benning and dazzled during a USO event on Sand Hill. Katie Cook takes a walk down Sesame Street.
The Sesame Street USO experience dropped by Fort Benning to put on a performance that many will not forget. Sand Hill Recreation Center was packed with kids excited to see their favorite Sesame Street friends. Many children recognized these furry friends as they sang and danced across the stage. But there was one new Muppet that many didn't know.
There's a very special Muppet that you'll meet only at this show named Katie, and what's special about Katie is she happens to be a military child herself. So the kids come to see Elmo and Cookie Monster, Grover, Rosita, all their old friends, but when they meet their new friend Katie, it's very exciting because they see somebody just like them up on stage.
Katie just found out that she is moving to a new base, and she uses her experiences to teach kids change is not a scary thing.
She's a little nervous about it, which completely makes sense. She comes and talks to her friends about it, and through songs and dances, and she gets all kinds of tips on how to stay in touch with her old friends at her old base and easy ways to make new friends at the new base she's moving to.
There are many ways to stay in touch. And so many ways to stay friends.
But one thing Katie and the whole Sesame Street gang loved to do was dance. And dance. And dance some more. While Katie is their new friend, there was one old friend that many kids were excited to see again.
Getting to see Cookie Monster and he hugged me. Yeah, dancing. We danced so much.
The Sesame Street USO experience travels to different bases all over the world and has reached 500,000 military families since it started its tour in 2008. Katie Cook, Fort Benning, TV.
You could say that story was brought to you by the letter K.
David, those kids look like they had so much fun.
Yeah, Cookie Monster's my favorite. My son's favorite.
I figured he had a blast. And that will bring this edition of the Benning Report to an end.
But you can watch these stories and others on youtube.com/BenningTV or at benning.army.mil.
And you can also like us on Facebook.
From the Public Affairs Office, thanks for watching.